Hi, and welcome to another edition of Dad's Divorce Live. I'm Matt Allen, editor of DadsDivorce.com. Today we're joined by Marcus Matthews, who is the author of I Am Not the Father, Narratives of Men Falsely Accused of Paternity. In the book, Marcus shares his story and the story of 4 other men who were falsely accused of paternity. Now you can find out more information about Marcus and his book, including how to buy it, if you go to his website, marcuslmatthews.com. So Marcus, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me on, Matt.
Now, first off, I wanted to ask you if you noticed any common themes or anything that all these 5 men, including you, had in common when you wrote this book. Were they long-term relationships that this false accusation came out of, or were these just sort of flings, or anything along those lines you could share?
I think what was interesting that I found, Matt, was that the contexts were different in the cases. Some people might expect that these would be flings or fly-by-night relationships, but we had one instance where a young man had dated the girl since 7th grade. They were junior high sweethearts and had dated for years and went to the prom together and were thinking about getting married at some point. Wow. And there was a false accusation.
Now, I want to ask you about the emotional aspect behind the decision men face in these situations. I'm sure there's the dilemma of should you stay and raise and support this child that all along you were led to believe was yours until it was suddenly revealed that this child isn't yours anymore. So what was that decision-making process like? Did you feel an obligation to stay and support the child?
Well, in my case, it was a little easier for me to separate myself because I didn't feel as though I fathered the child, because my situation was one encounter, with a condom that didn't bust. But for some of the other gentlemen, there was an attachment there because they really thought they were the father. They were in relationships with these women, and 2 of the guys had absentee fathers, and that really affected them because they had made up their minds a long time ago to be a better father than the absentee father, that they had biologically. So for those men, it was very difficult emotionally for them to pull away in those relationships.
Now, false paternity or paternity tests in general get a lot of play in the media in terms of radio shows or TV shows like the Maury Povich show, where they will do whole segments around revealing if the male is or is not the father. So do you think false accusations of paternity are not taken as seriously because we see these entertainment shows, sort of take this subject matter pretty lightly?
Yes, it's a subject that has been sensationalized, but it is an epidemic. Nationally, the false rate is about 14 to 17%. But where I live in Shelby County and in Memphis, we have the largest clinic who does private testing, who's had months where 70% were exclusions.
Wow.
So this is a large percentage of young people who don't know, children who won't know who their father is, possibly. And in my case in the book, which I do reveal, once I took my paternity test and we were waiting on the results, the young lady died before the results were issued out. So in that case, that's a child who may never know, who her biological father is, and also she had to deal with the fact that her mother is deceased. So it's something that's taken lightly. We watch it on TV, we laugh at it, but there are some serious family issues and other issues that arise from false accusations with paternity.
Now, as you mentioned, it's pretty serious. I mean, not only there are many victims, not only the accused man, but there's also the biological father who is lied to, and of course there's the child who isn't quite sure who his or her parent or father is. So what can be done to stop it? What should the consequences be for women who do make these false accusations of paternity?
Well, there definitely needs to be more communication in families, even though this is a problem that happens with adult age people. This is also a problem that occurs a lot with young people who are in relationships who haven't really talked to their parents about the fact that they're sexually active at all. So I think that's one primary thing. And then right now there is no latest legislative action There's nothing that says, children who are born out of wedlock must be tested by DNA to prove paternity. So something like that would definitely help curb the situation, so to speak. And as you mentioned, there are so many people who are involved. In my book, there's a young man whose whose son supposedly was named a junior. So this child is named after this young man.
Wow.
He lives in the home with this young man. And then the biological father, who knew that he was having relations with this woman, says, hey, how are you so sure that this isn't my child? So now you have two men who want to be fathers, who are asking about this child. And then you have a grandmother, you have family, you have so many different people involved who want to love this child and want this child to belong to them. And it's a lack of communication on that young lady's part. Fortunately, she eventually stepped up and told the young man, this is not your child, and allowed the biological father to be a part of that child's life. But now that child's named after another man, and that's a conversation that you're going to have to hold. How am I so-and-so junior? And this man, has been in my life as my father. So, yeah, there are definitely a lot of people involved, and there are some ways to curb that problem. One, communication, and I think we need to really look at the process of claiming paternity. It should not. It's difficult when the process is as easy as putting someone's name on a piece of paper and saying that's the guy.
Now your situation was especially tragic with, as you mentioned, the mother of the child eventually dying shortly thereafter the child's birth. So what was your motivation behind sharing this pretty personal experience?
Well, I had not realized how much of an issue that false paternity was until I was writing my autobiography. I'm a doctoral candidate at the University of Memphis in higher education, and I grew up in a poor neighborhood in Memphis. And my story was about growing up in that poor neighborhood and becoming a doctor. But somehow, looking at my autobiography, actually I listened to a speech by Spike Lee at the University of Memphis, and it was very inspirational. And I said, I want to start telling stories now. And I decided to look through my autobiography, and I found this story. And when I thought about it, I said, there are so many men that I know in my own personal life that have been falsely accused of paternity.
Yeah.
So I started calling these guys, and I said, what do you think about us telling this story? And they liked the idea. And when I started talking to other people about the idea of me doing the book, other people stepped forward and said, you know what, I was falsely accused too. And, I'm like, wow, I knew it was an issue. I didn't know it was this much of an issue. And when I started speaking to experts, when I talked to Stephen Kahn, who's one of the, he runs one of the largest testing facilities here in Shelby County, and he's giving me these statistics, 70% exclusion rates for certain months. It was amazing. And from here, it's been a really positive response. I think people are opening their eyes and understanding that this is a critical social issue of false paternity, and we're paying it more attention here in Memphis. And I'm appreciative of that, and I think nationally, it will be paid more attention as well and looked at in a more serious light.
Sure. And finally, what do you hope people get out of this book? Is it just the raised awareness of this issue?
I definitely want to raise awareness. I also want those men who are falsely accused to have a voice. I think, again, we talked about what TV and radio sometimes does to those situations. We need to have a voice, and people need to understand that these aren't just, bums off the street. When you see these guys, these are educated men, these are enterprising men, these are tax-paying citizens who oftentimes want to be fathers in these situations. So I definitely want to give those people a voice. And I also want to start the conversation with families, and I want families to talk to their young people, male and female, about how they deal with intimacy and dating in their own personal lives.
Well, Marcus, thanks for joining me today, and thank you very much for your activism in helping raise awareness of false accusations of paternity victims.
Thank you very much.
Now, you can learn more information about Marcus and his book, again, by visiting his website, marcuslmatthews.com. That'll do it for this edition of Dad's Divorce Live. I'm Matt Allen, editor of DadsDivorce.com.